Welcome to Reshaping Luxury. CNNMoney Switzerland has teamed up with DLG Digital Luxury Group, a global digital marketing company, to bring you the latest in the luxury industry. David, how is luxury changing?
The luxury industry is changing fast, and that's really important. You have new consumer coming, you have new business model, you have changes at the retail place. I mean, everything is changing and quite fast.
Later, you'll be speaking to CEO of Kering Swiss watchmakers, Pruniaux. But first, tell us this e-commerce space, because we really see in Switzerland leaders like Richemont, LVMH, they're leading in this e-commerce space. But how are these conglomerates really keeping pace here?
It's a good question, Amanda. I think there are like three extremely important insights when it comes to those luxury conglomerates. Let's start with LVMH, the world-leading luxury good company. LVMH launched 2017 the website 24s.com as an official platform destination for all the LVMH brand. Obviously, the aim was to create a direct link between the LVMH brand and the consumers on top of an existing physical store, the historical Le Bon Marché in Paris. If we go and cover Kering now, Kering is extremely important because they used to be working closely to Yoox Net-a-Porter. That was a long-lasting relationship that they decided to stop by the end of last year, bringing back internally once again, and really trying to have the control over their own brand, and once again, direct linked with the end consumer. Last but not least, Richemont. Richemont was already an investor into Yoox Net-a-Porter, but in fact, by the end of last year, they became the majority shareholder, making Yoox and Net-a-Porter the e-commerce arm of the Richemont group. As a result, you can see more and more of the watchmaking and jewelry Maisons visible on Yoox Net-a-Porter. And they are also interesting about China that we'll discuss a little bit later.
Of course, they all seem to want control, physical stores still being important. They want that direct link with the consumer and having the power. So the majority share of the market is also important. Tell me, you mentioned a few names there. Which is the leading company in the e-commerce space, would you say?
Everything is still wide open. And that's where the story becomes fascinating. If you look at the Western world, what is happening? You have Farfetch. Farfetch as a pure player, they IPO'd around 2 years ago. They already have 2.7 million customers, and they are expanding very quickly to new product categories, including watches as an example. Then on the other end, you have Yoox Net-a-Porter. Yoox Net-a-Porter, fully owned by Richemont, as we said before, 3 million customers, more and more strength and willingness to develop this platform as the leading luxury platform. I think this Western battle is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a much bigger battle happening in China. We all know how important the Chinese market is, representing 30% of the overall luxury spending. And what is happening in China is quite amazing. You have Luxury Pavilion in one end, owned by Alibaba. Alibaba more than 400 billion as a market valuation, tremendous amount of resources available to support the growth of such a platform. You have Toplife as well, initially launched by JD.com. Those two players are really battling and trying to get as much market share as possible within the booming Chinese middle class and the luxury consumers.
China clearly very good at capturing its own market at home, but what about the Western brands really trying to tap that Chinese market, which is a huge one?
That's probably the dream of all the Western companies, being able to tap into the promising Chinese market. And what is already happening is quite fascinating. You have Farfetch, which has recently acquired Toplife from JD as a strategic move, supported with the money they raised during their IPO. That was one very important element. Then you have Alibaba and Richemont that have decided to team up together. So now you have one platform, which is the Yoox Net-a-Porter platform that will be operated as a JV with one father, one mother, okay, two big conglomerates beyond, and all the forces also of the watchmaking and jewelry Maison. And LVMH, very important move as well, decided to team up directly with Tmall and leveraging the Tmall white glove service for a few of the important LVMH brands.
Lots happening, lots of consolidation, actually, in this luxury space. David, you've got the research, you've got the insight, you've got the contacts. Thank you for sharing with us how luxury is shaping itself into the future.
Thank you, Amanda. Patrick, you have been working for the luxury industry for quite a number of years, helping Apple launching the Apple Watch, working at LVMH, and now overseeing Kering watchmaking Maison. I mean, what are your action plans when it comes to China?
China is a very important market, obviously not only for the watch industry, but for the luxury world in general. And for us, it's very important to make sure that the message we communicate in China is being understood very clearly, and it's being also localized in the meaning of the message and the product. So, for instance, we've taken a couple of actions with Ulysse Nardin and Girard-Perregaux, making sure all teams in China are locals. They're based now in Shanghai, when usually most of the luxury Maisons are based in Hong Kong. And we want to make sure that we've got a deep understanding of the consumer, because it's a fast-changing market, very prompt to adopt new behaviors, new consumer habits.
And you just opened a new flagship in Shanghai for Ulysse Nardin.
Correct. We just opened in Shanghai now a flagship. We are about to open a new one in a week in Beijing, as well in prime location. And we have also several requests to open franchise store in the rest of the country, but we want to make sure we remain very exclusive in China, the same way we're exclusive in the rest of our distribution worldwide. And it's true also for Girard-Perregaux.
And China has been changing so much lately. What type of consumer demand are you seeing emanating from China?
We see some major shift in China, and I would say from a country that used to have a conservative taste. I mean, a consumer used to buy watches, for instance, that were sort of flat and gold. Now there is a very fast evolution toward more sporty product. That's one trend. Also in China, I believe we start to see now customers also being trendsetters, much more than followers. And they are eager to move away from mass luxury brands. And it's true in watches, but the same it's true also in some other areas of the luxury, to more specialized, more genuine and authentic brands, such as Ulysse Nardin.
That's really interesting. So more Chinese trendsetters than followers.
Definitely, definitely. And every trip to China, and I tend to go there every 2 months, plus communicating with our team very regularly, that's something I measure. And it's very exciting, because you want to make sure that while we remain very true to who we are as a brand, with our history and the stories we tell globally, we also bring a flavor that is being understood by trendy, edgy consumers, especially younger ones.
What about younger ones, indeed?
Yeah, the younger, it's very interesting. Probably the average age of our Chinese consumer is younger than in the rest of the world. There is no hesitation in China, in particular, and Chinese consumer overall worldwide, to go and buy product that could be seen as more expensive to the rest of the world. And that makes it very, very exciting, because you want to make, I think people want to just enjoy the moment, and they also want to make sure that there is a level of excitement which is very high. I think the word excitement and desirability is probably the most important one.
So excitement and desirability. How do you foster excitement and desirability specifically?
Yeah, the excitement and desirability are very strong. But we need to do that while continuing the story that has started more than 2 centuries ago for Girard-Perregaux, 175 years ago for Ulysse Nardin. So how do we anchor ourselves in a long tradition and do something which is extremely exciting on the moment? I think first it's innovation. You have to continue to innovate in terms of product, in terms of movement, in terms of material. You also have to make sure that the stories you tell every year are clear, they're crispy, they also in tune with the spirit of our time, and also the way we communicate through our friend of the brand ambassador. The different areas where we communicate are extremely clear to the Chinese consumer.
And I mean, more globally speaking, beyond China, what's your vision of the state of the luxury watch market?
It's a very interesting time for the watch market. It's unique, actually. I think the watch market, as we all know, went through different phases of expansion and crisis in the past. But this time it's different. I think the market is growing, but the market is being completely reorganized. On one hand, you have a certain type of consolidation. It's true in the distribution. There is also something which is new to the watch industry. It's only a phenomenon that started 10 or 15 years ago, which is the fact that the brand tend to speak directly to the end consumer. And it could be done through brick and mortar retailing, but it could be done also online. There are different ways to do it. There is also an excitement for new brands. or for brands that have an history that are not that well known. I mean, this tendency, especially in China, for the best kept secret brand or brand for people in the know is very important.
That's a fascinating topic. In fact, what we have realized is that obviously e-commerce is still quite small, but the impact of e-commerce is quite important on luxury purchases. So at DLG, we have been recently realizing a research focused on the state of the luxury watch e-commerce market. Let's have a look at the short explainer.
Luxury watch brands are slowly catching up when it comes to direct-to-consumer e-commerce. Currently, only around 40% of luxury watch brands offer direct-to-consumer e-commerce as a retail channel, according to a report by Digital Luxury Group. But a few brands are ahead of the curve. These are Cartier, Louis Vuitton, and Dior, making them the 3 leading brands in the luxury watch market today. Their direct-to-consumer approach allows them to significantly grow their knowledge on consumers, offering services like faster delivery, personalization, and stock level notification are all key to the direct-to-consumer experience, helping these companies to understand their customers better. More data means more insights into how best to approach and engage new and existing customers. Factors like age, sex, income, location, spend patterns, and social media activity are just some of the measurements that companies look at, which helps them to understand their customers better. Part of their outperformance is down to their association with other mature e-commerce product categories like beauty, jewelry, and accessories. Because of their experience and expertise in selling these categories, companies like LVMH and Richemont have been able to apply these learnings to their watch brands, meaning they are able to create an omnichannel experience for their customers. This allows them to bring consumers back into brick and mortar stores and make their whole customer experience seamless from online to offline. However, to help customers decide and prioritize their purchases, brands need to enable better feedback from consumers. They also need to be more open about user-generated content, ratings, and reviews. These expressions are often seen as an indicator of brand openness and authenticity. Over the next few years, luxury companies will need to ensure their e-commerce offerings are seamlessly integrated within the customer experience.
Patrick, what did you think of what you just saw?
Very interesting. And I think, the watch industry has been probably slower to adapt to the e-commerce compared to some other part of the luxury world. And the watches now are catching up, but there is still a lot to come. And it's no surprise that some of the best brands are actually marginal when it comes to the watch business, but they're probably on the forefront when it comes to the e-commerce because they're leveraging the experience and the expertise they've acquired in some other businesses.
I feel it's absolutely right. And I wanted to ask you this question. Being part of Kering, which is such a strong group into the fashion industry as an example, is it a competitive advantage also for your brand to learn and acquire knowledge?
I wouldn't say it's a competitive advantage, but it's a fantastic opportunity. We learn a lot from our sister brands. Obviously, belonging to a group where there are brands such as Saint Laurent, Brioni, Gucci, or Bottega Veneta, we can learn a lot. And for instance, brands that are extremely edgy, such as Balenciaga, are also very interesting for us. So for us, we share knowledge and we share also experience. And for us, it's a wealth of information.
So I guess that for independent brands, that might be a point of potential risk, right?
I'm not quite sure because at the end of the day, actually, the information, today is available out there, but yeah, you need the right advice and you need to learn fast. And probably we're at a tipping point now. We discussed earlier about the changes in the watch industry. The omni-channel and the e-commerce is probably one of the main ones.
You're a luxury client yourself. In your point of view, both as a CEO and as a luxury client, what do you feel is the ultimate luxury experience?
That's a very interesting question because we tend to see sometimes consumers like if if consumer were to buy a watch only one brand or another brand. And I think that's wrong. I don't think there is a difference between us as a consumer, you or me, when we're going to buy a watch or we're going to buy a car or another product. I think what triggers our purchase is level of desirability, level of excitement, as we mentioned before, but it's also the consumer experience we can get. It's sometimes the level of personalization you could get. And much, even more than that, what's interesting is the values of the brand. What matters is the why. We're going to buy a product for the why. Why is Ulysse Nardin important? What is the message behind the brand, or J.R. Perregaux? And I think that's a more important thing than just the product.
And in building such type of narrative or storytelling, what are the typical challenges?
I think the challenges are probably to be disconnected with your history or who you are. You don't transform yourself. You continue an history that has started long ago. For brands like Ulysse Nardin that were born more than 170 years ago, the story you have to tell is a continuation of something that started. So you need to have a lot of respect for what has been done, but you need to adapt it also to the present time. The sense of innovation that always been very strong in the watch industry needs to prevail and to be explained to the consumer. And that maintaining that consistency and that genuineness, I think, is paramount.
Okay. And do you feel that this new omni-channel world, beyond the communication part, does it impact as well like the supply chain, I would say, overall logistic, or some of the other important elements of the business model?
It does. Actually, omni-channel means we're going to take care of the client wherever the client is going to be and however he wants to talk to us. So it's no more, Mr. Client, come to our store. It's we're going to come to you and we're going to make sure we deliver a superior experience wherever you're going to be, whether it's online, whether it's going to be in brick and mortar, whether it's going to be in our own store or with a partner. And I think that has an influence on the rest of the organization. And it's probably even more than an organization, it's a mindset.
Speaking of mindset, I guess that this might have an impact as well on the talent and on the culture?
Correct. And that's a very strong one, especially in an industry which is quite traditional. So
how do you do that? Like, bridging the gap between tradition and...
Yeah, so that starts, I think, with the people working within a company. It's interesting. I think the first one is probably the level of passion. With nurturing the level of passion with a company, people are then willing to change, willing to adapt, and understand how the consumers are changing. And it's something we see every day within our organization. And we work really hard to make sure the whole organization will understand the purpose of what we do. I was talking about the why as a brand, and I think the purpose for the employees, I think it is extremely important.
It's really interesting because what I'm understanding from what you just said is that there is, in one hand, a respect for the tradition, for the history, but in one other, a need for change and a need to find new way of shifting a little bit both the business model and the culture. It seems that there are lots of battles that needs to be launched.
That's right. It's a lot of battles that we need to win at the same time. It's actually the tension between those supposedly contradictory topics that create, I think, a very exciting experience for the consumer and a great product as well. And that's what makes it different and what helps us also making sure that it's also, I was talking about the genuineness. I think genuine means there is no difference when you visit a manufacturer and when you buy the product. I think, and there is no difference over time. And then when you secure that, and you secure it by establishing the tension we were referring to, I think that's where when you're successful.
Patrick Pruniaux, thank you very much. I kept at least 3 important words from this conversation: desirability, excitement, but also authenticity. Thank you very much.